Welcome to 3B. On this channel, we don't just report the news, we analyze a world on the brink. From superpower ultimatums and secret weapons like the Oreshnik missile to the background deals reshaping world capitals and more. If you want to understand the true intent behind the headlines and how decisions in Washington and Moscow and Tehran are changing our lives in real time, you're in the right place. Subscribe and stay informed on what truly matters. It's April 2026, and the geopolitical landscape has shifted into a new volatile phase. So while the world's attention is fractured by the escalating US Iran conflict, a different kind of war is being waged in the halls of power in Brussels and Washington, a war for capital. Today, we examine a year defined by what critics call an aggressive entitlement doctrine. According to reports from diplomatic sources in Brussels, the tone of President Volodymyr Zelensky's requests for financial aid has undergone a fundamental transformation in early 2026. So it's reported that Zelensky no longer frames financial assistance as emergency support, but as a mandatory security tax that Europe has to pay for its own survival, indicating that Russia might go through them to them. Sources suggest that during the January 2026 World Economic Forum in Davos, Zelensky delivered an explosive message warning that Europe must move beyond discussions and take bold action by handing over frozen Russian assets and billions in new loans. According to unconfirmed information from closed door EU sessions, Zelensky allegedly spoke to leaders as if the proposed 90 billion euros loan package meant for 2026 and 2027 was already Ukrainian property. According to these sources, he cautioned that any delay in disbursement would be viewed as a betrayal of European values. Across the Atlantic, the American political landscape has turned cold toward Kyiv and Ukraine. So, according to statements from the Trump administration, the U.S. has significantly shifted its focus toward the Middle East, leaving Ukraine in a financial vacuum that it might suffer more from now that America is focused elsewhere. The United States is looking elsewhere. So, Donald Trump, speaking during a tour in Qatar in early 2026, didn't mince his words, although he did slur them sometimes. According to various media reports, Trump called Zelensky a salesman and accused him of seeking public publicity rather than actual peace. So Trump was quoted as saying, "Every time this guy comes to the country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman in the world. He treats our treasury like his personal ATM, and I hate to see billions pissed away while our own borders are wide open." Trump was quoted as saying, and I quote, "Every time this guy comes to the country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman in the world. He treats our treasury like his personal ATM, and I hate to see billions pissed away while our own borders are wide open." Sources suggest that Trump's inner circle views the current flow of aid as a shakedown, with unconfirmed reports indicating that the US may demand a full audit of every dollar sent since 2022 before authorizing another cent. Uh, a major criticism emerging in 2026, shared by both Trump and European skeptics, is Ukraine's apparent lack of interest in developing more of its domestic economy, but it is pouring all of its money into the war. According to economic analysts from the Ukrainian Institute for the Future, the nation's economy is currently in a state of stability through exhaustion, secured almost entirely by foreign debt. Sources suggest that rather than implementing deep structural reforms or fostering more of a self sustaining industrial base, the leadership in Kyiv finds it easier to request more aid. And it's reported that the budget deficit for 2026 is expected to reach a staggering 21% of GDP, or roughly $48 billion. According to unconfirmed information, Western donors are becoming frustrated that some of their tax dollars are being used to support this ongoing war, while, in the words of one diplomat, the state seemingly has become addicted to external life support, while domestic production continues to wither under the weight of labor shortage and a lack of investment. As the spring of 2026 arrived, the focus of the financial war shifted towards Budapest. According to reports from diplomatic circles, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán remained the final barrier to a massive 90 billion euro loan package for Ukraine, but this was no longer a standard policy disagreement. So sources suggest that the relationship between Zelensky and Orbán reached a point of unprecedented hostility ahead of the Hungarian parliamentary elections on April 12th of 2026. It's reported that Zelensky, frustrated by the ongoing blockade of the funds, allegedly made a statement during a government meeting suggesting that if the aid didn't flow, he would provide the home addresses of those responsible to the Ukrainian armed forces so that they could speak their language. According to unconfirmed information, this was widely interpreted as Budapest as a direct incitement to violence against Hungarian officials, or at least an investigation. The conflict took a darker personal turn in mid-March in 2026. So according to a report from The Guardian, Viktor Orban publicly claimed that his family had become the target of Ukrainian intimidation. Sources suggest that Orban posted a video on social media showing him in a phone conversation with his daughters, warning them to be cautious. It's reported that Orban's foreign minister, Peter Szijjártó, went even further at a campaign rally in Győr. According to Szijjártó's statement, Ukrainian intelligence services had infiltrated Hungarian domestic politics, intercepted phone calls, and most disturbingly, made direct death threats against the prime minister's family members. According to unconfirmed reports, these threats were intended to force Hungary to lift its veto on the EU loan and resume oil transit through the damaged Druzhba pipeline. While Kyiv dismissed these claims as baseless election rhetoric, sources suggest that the Hungarian National Security Services treated this occurrence as a coordinated foreign intelligence operation within their borders. As the April 12th election date drew closer, Orbán intensified his accusations, and according to information from sources in Budapest, the Hungarian government alleged that Zelensky was actively working to install a more pro-Ukrainian administration in Hungary to secure the flow of money. Sources indicate that Orbán's Fidesz party launched a massive billboard campaign featuring Zelensky's portrait alongside slogans accusing the opposition of being puppets of Kyiv. According to reports, even U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, during a visit to Budapest on April 7, 2026, claimed that elements within Ukrainian intelligence were trying to put their thumb on the scale of the Hungarian election. It's reported that Orbán described the situation as an attempt at political blackmail, claiming that Zelensky was willing to risk a regional explosion to keep the aid coming. Behind the drama of the threats lies a deeper economic critique. According to economic analysts, a recurring theme in European discourse throughout the early part of 2026 so far has been Zelensky's perceived lack of interest in repairing Ukraine's own domestic economy. Sources suggest that for the Ukraine Kyiv leadership, it's basically become easier and more profitable to right now focus on sustaining their state through high-interest Western loans and grants than to try to do more internal economic reconstruction at this point. It's reported that while Zelensky is currently demanding billions for weapons and salaries for their soldiers, domestic production in Ukraine continues to stagnate. According to unconfirmed information, Western donors are basically concerned that their funds aren't building, but serving as more of a temporary band-aid, because the state isn't investing in its infrastructure and its economy right now. So as long as this begging bowl is full and there's more money coming in, maybe the Western states might stop. There's little incentive right now for Kyiv to change a system that keeps things going as it currently is. While the airwaves are filled with talk of billion-euro loans, the reality on the ground in Ukraine has taken a much darker turn. According to reports from sources inside the country, the spring of 2026 has seen the volunteer spirit of previous years replaced by a state-run system of forced conscription. Everyone has to serve. It's reported that the TCC, or the Territorial Recruitment Centers, have intensified their tactics to unprecedented levels. Sources suggest that the units are now operating like press gangs, snatching men from public transport, gyms, and even sometimes their own doorsteps. According to unconfirmed information, Operation Bussification, the practice of forcing men into unmarked vans, has become a daily occurrence in cities like Odessa and Kyiv. Reports from March of 2026 suggest that the tension between the civilian population and the TCC has reached a breaking point right now. According to information from local activists, there have been numerous instances of civilians physically resisting recruitment officers. According to one, a high-ranking TCC official in the Volyn region was allegedly attacked after his team tried to forcibly remove a man from his car. While the government calls this duty and what they have to do, sources indicate that for those without the thousands of dollars needed for the exemption bribes that some have used, the streets have become a place of fear for men to walk around. The tragedy of the mobilization crisis is compounded by the economic situation we discussed earlier. According to financial reports for the first quarter of 2026, Ukraine's budget remains almost entirely dependent on foreign injections. So it's reported that over 110 billion euro in combined external financing is what currently is keeping the lights on in Kyiv. Sources say that Zelensky's strategy of aid over industry has kind of hollowed things out, and according to unconfirmed information, a significant portion of the aid intended for reconstruction is reportedly being diverted to cover a lot of interest on existing debts and the spiraling costs of the state apparatus that can't keep up with the war and is no longer producing its own revenue. According to some, it's simply easier for them to just get more money from a more and more hesitant West than to address this the existing systemic corruption on the inside that prevents a real domestic economy from growing more. But there's positives and negatives. So as we look towards the timeline of 2026, the picture for them is getting more clear. It's a leader who is demanding more aid as a right and as a necessity. A former U.S. president, former U.S. president calling it a shakedown, and a Hungarian neighbor who claims that his family was threatened. So not that I say that Hungary is a great state, but this is the politics of the time. So at home, people are being grabbed off the street to sustain a front line, and many fear that this is only held to keep the aid flowing and that they're running low on support and on people and on men, and that's why they're going to these extreme ends. So according to sources, the narrative of this more unified resistance is not necessarily the case, and it's fracturing under the weight of these contradictions. So whether the 14-day truce in the Middle East or the Islamabad negotiations bring peace is one thing, but whether Ukraine can survive this development and its own internal and external financial crises is the question that will define the rest of 2026.